Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Booktube Chicks Book Club live show for June. Tonight, we are going to be talking about Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. And I think some of us have some differing opinions, so it'll be hopefully a fun conversation. Before we get started, just little housekeeping items. If you've never been to one of our live shows before, we are going to do introductions and initial thoughts, and that'll take roughly 5 to 10 minutes. And then we are going to get into spoilers. So if you hadn't read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, make sure you're not around for spoilers then. And if you don't care, then stick around. We're going to be chatting about Honey Girl for the next 40 to 45 minutes or so. And let's go ahead and get started. Oh, hold on. I have to do a synopsis first. You want me to do it, Kat, or do you want to do it?
You can do it.
Okay, I'm just gonna read it from the dust jacket because I don't really know any other way to explain it. So we have this woman named Grace. She has recently finished her PhD in astronomy, and she goes on a girls' trip to Vegas to celebrate. And she basically has a drunken night, and she wakes up married to a woman she has no idea who she is. So basically, this does not fit into her carefully laid plans, and she also has her parents' expectations that she needs to try and follow. So she flees her home and she spends a summer in New York, basically getting to know this wife that she has no idea who she is. So let's see, who wants to start with their introduction and initial thoughts?
Desiree, you can go first.
Okay. So I think something that's like really important to note that's kind of outside of the book is that sometimes we read books at like very specific times in our lives. Like if I had read this a few weeks prior, I don't think it would have had the same impact that it had on me like reading it right now. I think I'm in like a very vulnerable headspace, and there was just certain parts that like I cried multiple times reading this. But the writing style was something I felt like I had to get used to. I don't know if it's just like I love reading in first person. For me, first person feels like home. And so anytime I like fall in love with a first person perspective book, and then I step outside of that, like I always have trouble adapting to the way the story is told. So there was like a sense of detachment, I think, with the third person. And so it took me a little while to get into it. But then when I was like reading with my eyes and listening with my ears, I feel like I was taking in much more of the story. And it's definitely not a rom-com. I don't know if it was like listed as a rom-com anywhere, but I can see how it's a contemporary, and I can see how it's a romance. I think the book was kind of heavy. Like it was heavy in the sense of like, you know, a lot of the characters are just dealing with a lot of different emotional things. I feel like some of the characters were a little bit codependent on each other, but it touches upon mental illness and coping with that and what that looks like, and you know, figuring out who you are for yourself, and having to deal with the fact that you may not live up to other people's expectations, nor should you. So it just, like, I can see this resonating with a lot of people for many different reasons. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story a lot.
I did not enjoy this book. To be honest, I have nothing against it. I don't hate it, but I just didn't enjoy it. That's my whole thing with this book. I did not enjoy it. I thought the book was super boring. Like I had the ebook. I was able to get the ebook, and I was listening to the audio. So I was trying very hard to get into this book, but for some reason I just couldn't. There are just certain books that all of us experience it. There are just certain books that we cannot get an emotional connection to. And this was one of the books. I really, really wanted to like this book. I really did, because I thought the premise was really interesting. And there are certain parts of this book that I really enjoyed, like Grace being so wanting so much to have her parents' approval, like her dad's approval especially. That's something that really resonated with me. I'm not saying my parents were as strict as her, but that's something that I've gone through in my life. I want my parents to be proud of me. And so I related to her in that way. But otherwise, I had no emotional connection to this book. I thought the book was just boring. I had a hard time getting through it, to the point where, for me personally, when I read books, when it comes to reading, I get very distracted. So if I realize that I'm distracted and I missed like maybe the last 30 seconds, I don't know what happened the last 30 seconds, I will go ahead and go back and reread it. But it got to the point where I didn't care anymore. So I just kept going. So there might have been moments where I just did not pay attention throughout the book, where I got distracted and I just didn't pay attention. I missed maybe big emotional points. But at one point, I just stopped caring about the book. I did give this book 2 stars because I did not hate the book. I just don't have that emotional connection to it. Again, certain parts I really enjoyed, but for the most part, this book it wasn't for me.
So I meet in the middle of these two opinions, where I gave this book a 3-star. I think that this book was marketed wrong, because everything that I heard about it was that it was a romance. And while it does have romantic elements, I think that this book probably should have been marketed more as a coming of age story, because I feel like that's what the bulk of this story is. And I didn't love this book. I didn't hate it. It was very middle of the road for me. I probably would not have picked it up if it wasn't, 1, a book of the month selection, and 2, our book club pick. But I feel like it was our book club pick because Desiree and I really wanted to read it. I think that this book has an audience. I don't think that I was that audience. I don't think that this book was really for me, because I agree with some things that Kat are saying, where there were boring elements to me. And honestly, a whole bunch of other stuff that I want to get into, but that's more for like the main discussion. It was okay. I don't think it had the impact for me that it had for other people. And I just don't think that it was, I think the marketing was all wrong on it. Or like everybody who was saying that, like, oh, it's a romance. Oh, it's a romance. It's more of the coming of age story than it is really a romance, in my opinion. Some other people may think differently. So on that note, we'll go ahead and get into spoiler discussion and chat about what we thought about this book.
So just for like clarity's sake, you're saying you didn't feel like it was a romance just because the romance part wasn't the main part of the story?
I think the romance was kind of at one point, the romance was more put on the back burner of this story. And because I feel like it's Grace and Yuki. I feel like we follow them right at the beginning and right at the end, and like a big chunk in the middle. I mean, this is not a long book, but a big chunk in the middle is Grace really trying to find who she is now that she has her doctorate, and she doesn't know where she wants to go, and she has to follow her dad's expectations. So I feel like there was a lot of people were very heavy on saying that this was a romance book, where I feel like there's a little bit of romance in the beginning, there's a little romance at the end, and it's more of just coming of age. I mean, you can have like different books that have romance in them, but it wouldn't be marketed as a romance, in my opinion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, like, I was surprised because I had watched like with Cindy's and read her review on Goodreads about it, and the impression that I got from what she was saying was that like there was barely any romance. So the fact that she spent like her whole summer in New York with Yuki took me by surprise, because I really thought like they weren't even going to meet, that they were just going to send texts to each other occasionally, and that nothing else was going to happen. So I felt like it had more than I was expecting, but I guess, I was basing that expectation on somebody else's opinion of it. So I was just a little surprised. Like, it felt a little bit more than just a little bit in the beginning. It felt like a good, like the first third the Yuki was involved in, and then like maybe towards the last 2/3 it was more about Grace and finding herself. And of course, like they spun it back around towards the end, which was, I appreciated that.
I don't know if anybody else had this thought. If you guys listen to the audiobook, I exclusively listen to the audiobook on my commute, and I found that, I don't know if it's the writing style or just how the narrator perceived the book, I feel like it was almost trying to be lyrical in some senses, and I kind of compare that to Elizabeth Acevedo, but I'm not sure it
No,
really.
You're right. I think she had more of a lyrical prose, the book. I thought.
I'm not sure if I fully enjoyed it, because I feel like it was trying to be a certain way, but wasn't executed.
I agree with you. I think the book had a lyrical prose, and the narrator, to my opinion, I was gonna say something later. I didn't like the narrator, by the way. I felt like she didn't do the book justice, in my opinion. Maybe you guys feel differently. I don't know, Desiree, if you listen to an audiobook, but that's just my personal opinion. I did not like the narrator. It's like you said, I did feel like she was trying to capture the lyrical prose of the book. But to me personally, I feel like maybe part of the reason I did not have a connection with this book is because of the narrator. Because sometimes I don't like books because the narrator sucked, and that's not fair, but it's just how it is.
I feel like, because I was kind of doing a little bit of a taste test with some of the book of the month books that I had, and so I listened to the first chapter of this, and like just based on that first chapter, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna like this writing style. But then like what I realized was that it was just the type of book that I had to actively pay attention to. Like I couldn't just listen to it and do something else, and I couldn't not read it with my eyes. But as soon as I like connected those two things and I was like in the story, I adapted to the writing style. But because it's lyrical, it felt like there were moments where it kind of pulls you out of the story. If you're not paying like complete attention, because she might say something about one of her friends and then she will be like, oh, her roots are like blah, 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 deep into the ground. And I was like, wait, what? Like, why are we talking about the roots of a tree? And so if I wasn't paying attention, I wouldn't realize that maybe she was describing the character's personality in that way or the character's opinions in that way. And so there were moments like that where I felt like I did have to rewind or read it again to understand the connection that she was making between that lyrical prose and like whatever was happening in the book. And one of the things that I love so much about contemporary is that most often they're just really easy reads. And so that's what I think made this one a little bit more difficult, because I just felt like I had to actively be focusing and I had to really pay attention to make sure I was processing everything and getting everything that was happening. When, reading other contemporaries, it's just written in very simple language and it doesn't require too much thought. But here I felt like there was a lot of thought required.
I agree with you. Usually the contemporaries are the ones that I like to listen on my commute to work, because I mean, I'm not saying that they're like less than other books, but they don't require a lot of thought process in order to understand them. So I enjoy reading contemporaries in my commute to work. So I can't do like fantasy, sci-fi, or even this book. I had a hard time. I had to stop to read the ebook.
If you were to try to identify, something that you did like about the book, what would it be? Like, would it be a specific part? Would it be the characters? Would it be, it sounds like it's not the narrator or the writing style. So
I did enjoy her reaction, her, how should I put this? That scene with her dad at the very end, where she finally tells her dad how she felt all these years, like how she felt that he's never that she felt that he was never proud of her, and that, she did everything that she did for him, specifically for him to be proud of her, and like how she felt when he, like, during her graduation, where she felt like he wasn't there, something happened. I enjoyed that moment because it felt like it was a real conversation that she had between her and her dad. And it was a really nice moment. And I'm like, yes, get your closure with your dad. And I'm glad that in that moment, he was able to tell her that, yes, I am proud of you. And almost like it gave her what she needed to hear all these years, because she's been trying so hard to make him proud of her. And she finally, she now knows that he is. So I did really enjoy it. I think that was probably my favorite part in the whole book. And I also appreciate how supportive her mom was to her. How she ran away to her mom, and her mom was just, very helpful to her. And she was able to start seeing a therapist through her mom's help and that other person's help. So I do appreciate the relationship that she had with her family towards the end, because obviously before she thought her dad didn't like her or something. But yeah.
I felt like this book had a large cast of side characters. And I don't know if you guys had this problem, but there were some points where I had a couple of issues keeping up with how many characters there are. Because I know before she goes to New York, she has the roommates, which are Jimena and Angie. But then she also works at the tea shop, and there's two characters at the tea shop that I think are brother and sister that are friends. I can't remember their names.
Raj and Mina.
Mina. I thought it was like Mira or something like that. Anyway,
maybe it's Mira.
I don't know. But then you go to New York and there's Yuki, and Yuki has like 3 roommates, I think, whose names I don't remember any of them. And then she goes to Florida, and then I think it's just her mom and Kelly. Kelly's the soon-to-be stepdad, I guess. And then there's the dad and the stepmom. This just had a large cast of characters that I had a really hard time keeping everybody separated and figuring out who was who. I think I finally got the hang of the friend group, not Yuki's friends, but like the 2 roommates and then the 2 people from the tea shop. And I couldn't figure out any of the other roommates of Yuki's roommates. I had a point. Hold on, I had something here.
I agree with you. Like, Desiree sent me a message earlier, like, who is this person? I was like, I don't know. So, but yeah, to be honest, I didn't really, I know the tea shop people, and that was pretty much it. I don't remember the names of everybody else.
I think there was only
like
one person I lost track of. Sophia. At some point, I was like, wait, who's Sophia?
Who's that now? I can't remember.
Yeah, I didn't figure it out by the time I got to the end of the book. Like, I felt like she kind of popped up unexpectedly towards the end, and I couldn't place her.
Oh, hold on.
Unless it was Raj's mom, which is possible that it could have been the mom.
I had a thought, and now I can't remember what it was. We're talking about
the original question was, what part of the book did you like?
I don't know that answer either. I felt like it had highs and lows for me. It was like, okay, this is going somewhere, and then it was like, oh,
you
okay,
didn't have a favorite part?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, I liked the ending with like the wedding and everybody's happy, and also the finally confronting her father. Although there were a lot of times where I felt that her father was a real asshole, with all these like expectations, and I'm like, let her do what she wants at this point. Because I don't know about you guys, but my expectation growing up was to go to college and to get good grades. I don't think my mom really cared what I studied in. I think her dad wanted her to be like a doctor or something, and then she did. I mean, technically she is a doctor, but she did like astronomy. I don't know. So I think the ending was like a high point for me.
Another part that I really liked is when her email back to her professor with her standing up for herself. She was like, you know, they disrespected me and I just don't feel like that's the place for me. I don't remember exactly. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly. But I was like, yes, do not accept less than what you deserve. And I was like, girl, yes, if they disrespected you, if they didn't see how should I put it? If they didn't see your worth, then they don't deserve you. And I was so proud of her. I was like, do not take, because before when she was considering going for that second interview, I was like, do not take it because they're going to disrespect you just as much as the first time. Do not take it. And I was so proud of her. I was like, yes, you tell your professor who's really nice for doing this for you, but still they don't, that's even if they were to give you the job, that's a toxic environment waiting to happen. So you're going to be miserable. Do not take it. I was so proud of her for standing up for herself.
I completely forgot about the professor too in that moment. So yes, I second that. I loved where she was finally like taking control and was telling all these people who are like, you need to do this, you need to do that. She's like, no, I need to do it my own way.
I think part of the reason that this felt so impactful was that, like, sometimes when we see the people we care about going through specific things, it can be hard to separate like their feelings in the moment versus our feelings kind of reacting to what they're going through. And of course, those things should kind of be separate. But it was kind of painful to watch how many times, like the majority of the characters, with the exception of like Yuki, the majority of the characters would say things to her like, don't cry, I can't handle it. Don't cry, it upsets me. You know, like they were basically like telling her not to have feelings because they couldn't deal with her having feelings. And that's like, that sucks. Like that's pretty much why she was having so many issues, was because I mean, she had more going on in the background with her mental health, but she has all these friends and all these family members who for years have been like shutting down her feelings, basically telling her, no, don't feel these things because we can't handle it. And that was just a painful realization, I think, while reading the book, and that really emotionally affected me.
One thing I was thinking about is, you know, Yuki has this, I guess, radio show or talk show or something like that, podcast, whatever you want to call it, where she, you know, she speaks to all the lonely creatures. I'm not sure how to phrase this without it just sounding bad, but for me, that started to get repetitive almost, because I felt like that was then pulled into real life and wasn't separate from the radio show. But then it got to the point where they were monster chasing, and I was really confused on where that was coming from. And they were driving to this like lake or something like that. I'm a little confused on where that fits into the whole story, because it felt like a really random piece just thrown in there.
Well, the roommate, Yuki's roommate, kind of explained that. And he was talking about how Yuki really cares about people, and she doesn't want people to feel alone, which is the number one reason she has the radio show. And so what he was saying was that, you know, whether the person that called in knows that she visited the lake, or whether Yuki believes about the monster in the lake, she wanted to go and she wanted to see it and she wanted to experience it so that that person wouldn't feel alone. Like, she wasn't even necessarily going to tell the person about it, but it was still just, you know, considering that person's experience and wanting to experience it so that he wouldn't be alone.
Okay, that makes more sense. That was probably one of those moments where I might have zoned out a little bit. Yeah.
I think like with the romance, I feel like the romance, not that it didn't necessarily work, but I can't say that I was like super rooting for them at any one moment. Um, I don't want to say that they didn't have chemistry, but I wasn't like feeling like they did have a lot of chemistry. I mean, they're getting to know each other. Like it was very early in their relationship, even though they had married each other. But I feel like I was just going to say that I feel like Yuki was kind of written as this like manic pixie dream girl kind of thing. Um, and that took a little bit away from her as a character, I felt like.
I personally thought the romance was just a plot device to get the ball rolling for Grace to kind of figure out who she is, because it started off with this impromptu, not planned, don't remember who you are wedding for all the events to start happening. So it's kind of like a snowball effect. So I I I personally think that the romance wasn't even necessary for the book. It was just necessary to get the ball rolling. For me personally, that's how I felt.
Well, I thought it was kind of important because Yuki still like she plays a role, right? She has Grace questioning what it means to be the best, what it means to be happy. Like she's the one that really kind of accepts Grace where Grace is at without expecting all these other things of her because they just met. So they're really just learning who each other are. So it's hard to have expectations for someone when you don't know much about them. Like you're just kind of learning about them. So it seemed like Yuki was the only character in the book just letting Grace be Grace and experience the world and figure out what she wants. Um and then she had her own feelings of loneliness going on. Apparently, like her trip to Vegas was part of a monster chasing thing, and she didn't find anything that made her happy until that last night when they both got drunk. And then it was something very unexpected that happened. And so
Yeah, I agree that this is a couple that I I wasn't rooting for them like I do in other romances or in other contemporaries that I really enjoy. So I agree with that. And I also agree that the romance did feel like a way to get the real story going. I never really thought of it like that. So I definitely think that's an interesting perspective to take, since I didn't think about that. And honestly, I feel like even if Yuki didn't show up at the end, I feel like Grace would have been in some sort of well-rounded place.
I think it's like a little bit difficult to relate to the idea of just like meeting someone and marrying them so quickly and then falling in love. Um, I mean, not that I've never fallen in love quickly. It just seemed really quick in the book because they didn't know all that much about each other. But, um, Grace seemed pretty sure, with the exception of when she left New York, that she wanted Yuki to be part of whatever it was that she was doing. And I think it would have been kind of messed up for her not to try to patch things up with Yuki when she realized, hey, maybe I should take a teaching job, because that was something Yuki had suggested. She was like, oh my God, you're a great teacher. And so it almost feel like it had to work out that way.
One other thing that I was thinking about while listening to the audiobook is I feel like the book kind of flashbacks kind of start like I guess instantaneously, for lack of a better term, to where sometimes I was like, wait, is this the past? Is this what's currently happening? There weren't a lot of them, but like just enough for me to be like, okay, what's going on here? What's going on here? I don't know what's happening here. There were a couple of those that kind of took me out of the story just because I was a little confused on where we were. I don't know if anybody else had that issue.
I only noticed that there was time jumps because I started seeing dates. But if you told me to like describe what the time jumps were, I might not be able to. But I know there was like a couple of areas where they were talking about the tea shop and cake and her birthday and her contacting her mom and like in a different country. She obviously had a very, very complicated relationship with her parents. And they were like complete opposites, right? You have like the colonel who's the very, very strict military person, and then you have her mom who was kind of like this hippie chick that just kind of wants to be a leaf flying in the wind doing whatever she wants. And so I can see how that would like create like this internal struggle in Grace. I don't even remember what the question was. But so like yeah, the time jumping, you're right. I don't think there was too much of it, but there may have been like once or twice where it kind of made me lose my place.
I do agree that, you know, both the parents are very opposite. And I think when they were talking about how Grace went to live with her dad, I was a little confused, but I think it was clarified at the end. I thought that the mom was like shipping Grace off to live with the dad permanently. I didn't realize that the dad came in and was like, "Hey, I want her to live with me for X amount of time." So I was a little confused where I was like, did the mom really just like ship her off to live with her so she can go live this hippie lifestyle of traveling? And I was a little like peeved about that at first, but then once it was clarified, I wasn't as frustrated. I don't know. I felt like, I don't know. I feel like having Kelly come in as a character kind of grounded the mom more, which helped with the end, like with the ending and Grace going there and getting help and all that.
Well, honestly, I feel like Grace going to her mom's helped ground the mom a lot. And especially her speech for the wedding. Like she said a lot of things about her mom in there that I felt like helped round her out as a character and not feel like this one-dimensional, just flighty mom. I think it's kind of interesting for whatever reason, like the last few books I've read have had a mom like that just wasn't really present, was doing lots of traveling, was always off in her own world kind of doing stuff. I think there's a mom in Soulmate Equation that's like that. Did you read that yet, Chloe? No. So, but, you know, it's, the thing is that like, and I've told my son this a million times, right? We all have our own dysfunctions and those kind of get passed down in different ways from our parents, right? But there's no such thing as perfect parents. And even the parents who do think they're perfect, you know, whether they be financially stable and they have educations and they, you know, have gone to therapy and have self-awareness, there's still ways that their dysfunctions are going to manifest in their kids. So like I appreciated that, you know, each of the parents had an opportunity to kind of explain what their rationale and what their thinking was. You know, like she felt like her dad had abandoned her and he was like, he explained that no, he hadn't been in his whole thought process. And like after hearing that, like who could blame him for thinking all the things that he was thinking, you know, and for being upset that, you know, she didn't become a medical doctor because he had lots of connections in that field and he could have helped her advance. And, you know, as a parent, he wanted to be able to do that. But when she selected a field outside of that, like he kind of rendered any of his help, you know, not possible. And then, you know, her mom basically sitting her down and talking about the therapist and explaining what she was feeling when she left or when she disappeared, or, you know, I just appreciated the honesty of all of that. And it's important to know that sometimes when we have our dysfunctions, they come from somewhere, and our parents are usually, for the most part, trying to do the best that they can. But even with their best interests at heart, things are going to still manifest in each of us differently. And it's kind of up to us to figure out what that looks like and how to deal with it.
Anybody have Any other thoughts on the book? Kind of running out of I'm running out of things to talk about.
You said you had 2 questions from somewhere. Do you still?
One of them got answered when we were chatting about, like, is this more of a romance? Is this more of a coming age? Thoughts on that? I feel like you kind of just answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. What did you guys think about Colonel and his expectations?
I mean, I feel like, he felt just like the typical kind of like military person, wanting things to be like by the book and very strict and always planned out and stuff like that. So I think his expectations were high, but I feel like as parents, for the most part, I mean, as a parent, I feel like I have high expectations of my son. Sometimes, maybe they feel overbearing, but I want him to have things that I didn't have. I want him to be successful in ways that I wasn't successful. Maybe that's all my own junk, but I just want to make sure that he has every opportunity to do those things. So, like, I don't think he was a bad person per se or anything like that. And he obviously really, really cared about her, but, he had his own stuff to deal with too.
Yeah, I think once everything was explained at the end, there was more clarity. I remember at one point, it might have been one of the flashbacks, her having him like sit her down, and he laid out like some sort of like contract or some sort of like sheet of paper that had like the list of his expectations and everything on it. Maybe I just made that up in my head.
It was like a plan, like a plan for your future kind of thing. I didn't think it was like his expectations, more like here's your path to the future, you're gonna do all of this. That's how I felt like it was.
Yeah, the way I felt it was like he's like, all right, this is the plan, this is what you're gonna do, can't stray from the plan, blah blah blah. And I feel like that was part of like what got Grace to the point of where she had to escape. Was everything was so rigid by the book, like this is what you're going to do. And I definitely understand that, because when I was in school, it was like I graduated high school, I started college in the fall, and I didn't stop until I graduated. So that was 4 years, not even taking a semester off, of just like boom 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 boom. Like eventually you're gonna have a moment where you need to step back and be like, this is not possible anymore. And that's where the book ultimately ended up.
Did you guys highlight any passages? Was there any like sentences or paragraphs maybe that stood out as being well written or emotional? Or like, I highlighted a lot of stuff. Let me see if I can pull it up. I had it on Bookly.
Yeah, I was kind of just like audiobook only for the most part on this. So
like I was saying, like the first thing I highlighted was a conversation with her mom where she says, "My star girl," mom says, "please stop crying. It's breaking my heart." And that was like that first, like, oh my God, they're not even letting her have feelings. They're not letting her express her emotions because, they can't handle it. And then, and then her mom says to her, "I have only the wisdom of my own life to share with you. And my life has taught me to take," oh no, somebody else said that. I think this was like the owner of the tea shop. It says, "I have only the wisdom of my own life to share with you. And my life has taught me to take care of myself so that I can take care of everything else. You'll figure out how to do that." And, in just the state I've been in lately, I felt like that was really important. Like you do have to take care of yourself before you're able to take care of anyone else. But sometimes we allow that to fall by the wayside when we try to help others. The other thing that like really caught me off guard was when she was talking about the Mars rover. And so basically she was saying that, the Mars rover just lasted so much longer than it had ever been expected to last in regards to what it was doing. And one of the last things it said was just a status report on itself and on the atmosphere. But what it says is, my battery is low and it's getting dark. And for whatever reason, just those words just kind of like punched me in the gut.
It's not in the book, but I've read that before. And I remember thinking that how ominous that is. Like
it's just.
I remember, it was not from the book. I'll be honest, I don't remember seeing this on the book, but I remember reading about that and I was just like, holy crap, that's so awesome.
And it's like so sad too. Like this robot that doesn't even have emotions or anything, but like I started crying when I read that.
He's giving like a status report. He's probably like, it's a robot, doesn't really think what he's saying, but it's like, holy crap, oh my god, yeah, I remember that. That's
yeah, so that was like the first time I cried during the book. And then it says, seems healthy, Grace says, but she thinks she sees the appeal. She can't punch the uncertainty or the guilt or the fear folded inside of her, but she would like to. God, would she like to? Just kind of like wanting to be able to fight a lot of the uncomfortable emotions that she's experiencing. And then, like, we didn't really touch upon this, but I guess I had a lot of thoughts about Raj, right? Because he had a lot of expectation that was kind of put on him also. He obviously faced it in a different way. He was kind of like, he was a bit grim about it, I guess. He was just like, oh, well, life sucks. You just got to do whatever. But I mean, really, he was trying to protect his sister because he knew that if he told her that she would drop what she was doing, but his sister was like in a field that she really wanted to be in and she was studying for it. And so, he was kind of self-sacrificing there. Like, as a character, I hope for him that, doing the thing that maybe he'll come to love it in some way. But that responsibility, that familial responsibility where like a business gets passed down from the parent to the child and then the child doesn't want to do it, like, that sucks. That's I don't even really know what to say other than I feel for him.
Yeah. I was honestly, Raj is he's a rock star, I'm not even gonna lie, because he's sacrificing his future, he's sacrificing the things that maybe he wants to do to make sure that his sister not get to be the one to do it, like gets stuck to do it, because he knows that she will do it, but he also knows that that's not what's going to make her happy. So he's a really, really caring person. He's compassionate, and it's like you said, I really hope that he finds some joy in it, and that, I don't know, I hope that he is happy eventually.
I mean, I highlighted a passage here. So Grace is like, why aren't you more excited about this? And the way he's talking about it, like he sounds like he has a very sarcastic sense of humor, but it says, he crosses his arms. It's nothing. I'm just a terrible son. I hate my life and I'm sacrificing my millennial dream of hitting the lotto and fucking off to travel the world in order to run my father's tea room. 4 more glasses are set on the table. Raj downs one almost viciously. Maybe I'll even run 2 now. Fucking congrats to me.
And the fact that he calls himself a bad son, but the fact of the matter is he's a really, really good son, because he does not have to do. He can easily say like fuck off and not care about his father's tea shop. The fact that he knows that it's important to his parents, to his dad, and that if he were to leave, it would be his sister taking over. The fact that he stays says a lot about him, and I feel like he's not a bad son at all. In fact, he's a really, really good person. He's a really, really good child to his parents, to his family. So I do feel bad for him, though.
Yeah, my heart goes out to him. Right, exactly. Like, yeah. I just feel like it's honorable, but also like painful and very self-sacrificing.
And I get it. Parents, like, some people have this dream of having a business and having a family business and kind of passing it down to their children, it's kind of like they have this dream of like, you always hear of these businesses that have been in the family for generations, and everybody wants to have that, but sometimes you kind of end up sacrificing your children's happiness for this dream that it may not always be the best option. And I feel them.
So as someone that like struggles with anxiety, which, Grace and her mom do, like her mom, when they were talking about therapy and stuff, she was like, maybe give it a chance. Mom tilts Grace's head back so she can meet her eyes. It's not exactly the same, but I was like you for a long time. She smiles at Grace's suspicious look. I know. But when you were younger, I thought plans and lists and perfect organization would give me control. It didn't, though. It just made me worry more. And I just, like, I know as someone with like ADHD and anxiety, it's like sometimes it's really hard to maintain control of everything that's happening around you. And I definitely use like organization and lists as much as I can, but sometimes it's not enough. Let me see. Okay. And then like there was a part where she was talking with the therapist, and she says, I let people tell me what I was feeling for a long time, and I avoided understanding it for myself. I didn't want to know. I just wanted it to go away. She stares at her knees. How do I do that? And then the therapist says, I don't know if it ever goes away, but it can get better. It gets better when you confront it and you hold it up to the light and you start the process of breaking it down. And I thought that was a profound way to kind of just explain the process of therapy, and also why therapy is so important.
Now, I thought about something just now when you brought up the therapist talking, when she was like trying to find the right therapist, and before she found like the perfect one, they had the one where it's like, have you given your life to Christ? And I am just like
the one that says,
dying.
pray your problems away. I'm like, I mean, as someone, I believe in the power of prayer, to be honest, but I'm like, dude, that's not it. That's not what. No, that's not how you. No. You need. No. I'm not gonna lie. I was laughing at that part.
I was like laughing, but also like eye rolling. Like, you've got to be kidding me.
I think that might have been, let me see, that I might have like one more.
Wait, what? I know there was a second therapist that she didn't like. What was wrong with the other therapist? It was the first one was a white lady. The preacher guy was the black man. So what was the white lady? What was wrong with her?
I can't remember. I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember her.
I remember thinking, I was like, oh, a white lady. I don't know. It's like, oh no. And then I was like, I was hopeful for the second guy until he was like, pray your problems away. And I'm like, oh, it's not how it works, but okay.
I'm trying to find it now because I can't remember what was wrong with her.
I appreciate that though, because like I feel like finding a therapist that you connect with is really important. And sometimes like you may not get it right the first time around. Sometimes you might make an appointment with someone that you just don't click with, that might not be helpful, that might not understand your experience or really listen to your needs. So it's important to find someone you do click with.
Oh, okay. I just found it. Okay. So her name was Barbara Jean Marie. She says, so from a young age, you were exposed to the imperialistic ideals of the American military regime. Talk to me about that. I think that was it. It says the 55 minutes drag in silence. Barbara Jean Marie's pen hovers and Grace stares resolutely at the clock.
You're muted, Kat.
Sorry, I remember that she focused on the military portion of her life and then ignored everything else.
So the last thing I have highlighted, which I thought was funny, is when she's like giving the speech at the wedding and she's like, "We're gathered here today," she says, voice loud and clear, "to unite two people who have found love in our strange, chaotic world. Kelly," she says, turning towards the man who will soon officially be her stepdad, "you're kind and patient and wise. Most importantly, you always cook so much food and it's seasoned. Incredible." I thought that was hilarious. Um, as someone who is married to a white man that does all the cooking, we always have conversations about how underseasoned it is.
I've only tasted John's food, and it's pretty darn good. So
I'm not saying it's not good, but if you taste seasoning, it's probably because I influenced it.
The only thing that sticks out to me from John's cooking is the beer cheese soup, which might have been like the last thing that I had of his because I don't eat the lasagna. So
Chloe,
that's the
I know
only
you're
thing
a vegetarian, but the lasagna is so good. It's so good. Like, is it your recipe, Desiree?
Yeah, it's my mom's.
Okay. Well,
So.
okay. Well, it's Desiree's recipe, but it's really, really, really good.
But like we have to like he does most of the cooking of it just because I'm usually busy. But like when he's cooking the meat, he has to come over and be like, "Okay, I seasoned it as much as I think it should have it, but now you taste it and tell me if it needs more." And I'm usually always like, "Yeah, it needs more." So he's like, "All right." But we've tried to find some sort of middle ground, like something that's more than he would put in it, but not as much as I would put in it. So like somewhere where we're both happy. But I don't think I mentioned it before. I was just gonna say that I did give this four stars. I was a little worried in the beginning. I was like, man, did Book of the Month let me down? But no, I don't think they did. I think this was a really good pick. And I don't think I would have picked it up for myself had I not heard about it first and then saw that Book of the Month. Like, I feel like Book of the Month usually does a pretty good job of selecting books, like the 5 that they give us each month. So I'm pretty happy with it.
And you've definitely, like, I remember you text me all the time. You're like, "I want more than one. What do I do? What do I get?" And there's only been 1 month that I wanted more than one, and it was this month.
Do you regret it, Chloe, selecting this book?
Not really.
Because
I didn't like.
Because you said you had 2 options, so do you regret not getting the second option?
Oh no. This option was from February, and this was the only one that I was interested in.
Okay.
The ones from it was June's picks that I wanted 2 of them, and I did get 2 of them. I just paid for one. Okay. Do we have anything else we want to talk about with Honey Girl, or do we want to do our closing thoughts in next month?
I think closing thoughts is fine.
Alrighty. So, Kat, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. So Honey Girl, I wish this was a book that I really wished I loved it. And again, as I said at the beginning, it's sometimes there are just books that you just don't connect with, you don't emotionally connect with. I will say, I think part of the reason, I wouldn't say it's the whole reason, part of the reason might be the narrator. I don't like the narrator. This book has very pretty prose, and I do feel like the narrator tried. She tried. She gets A for effort, but ultimately, I did not like the way she narrated. It's just my personal preference. But besides that, I didn't connect with the book. I really, really thought the book was really boring. There were certain aspects about it that I really enjoyed, like her developing relationship with her dad, how it started off with her feeling like wanting to have her dad be proud of her, and in the end her getting that. I really enjoyed that. But besides that, there were not a lot of things I liked about the book. Unfortunately, I don't hate the book. I just there was no emotional connection, so I did give this book a 2-star. Of course, I will never write off an author, so I will like to read more from this author. But I just personally did not connect with this book.
I can go. I was just gonna say that, like, I feel it's just a story that you really need to be like fully present in to kind of absorb the way it's written. At least, you know, in my mind, I had a little bit of difficulty in the beginning, but like once I settled in, I felt like I was really interested in the story and in her journey and what she was going through and what all the characters were going through. It just feels like, I mean, she was a little older. She was like 29, but, you know, she was trying to figure out who she was. And I think the author did a great job of like really showcasing that journey and touching upon, you know, some issues with parents, but also discovering yourself and also, you know, discovering you may have mental illness and, you know, taking responsibility and going to see a therapist and, you know, maybe even taking medication, just being able to kind of change your life from where you are in that moment and to make it better. And I just really enjoyed the story and I give it 4 stars.
I didn't really have a ton of expectations going in. I was just like expecting like a nice fluffy romance, like I do. And I felt like I didn't get that so much as I got a coming of age story, which is not bad. It was just very middle of the road for me, and I gave it 3 stars. I agree with Kat. I'm not completely writing off this author. I would like to see what she does in the future. I think it would all depend on like what the book is and if it's something I would like. But overall, this one was just fine for me. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, very middle of the road, and I gave it 3 stars. Excuse me. So for July, we are reading a book that I think a lot of us are very excited about. I know I'm very excited about it. We are going to be reading Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Another book of the month pick, funny enough. And our live show is going to be on, I believe it is July 25th, but let me double check that. Yes, it'll be Sunday, July 25th at 6 p.m. Eastern on this channel. I'm so excited to read this. We'll have to see if Taylor Jenkins Reid has released another hit. Although I don't think anything will live up to Seven Husbands for me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, that was a good book.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to pick this up this month. I hope you guys are too. And we hope that some of you guys will join us. And yeah, that's all I got. So join us on July 25th at 6 p.m. Eastern for our Malibu Rising book club discussion. Also, you can join us, the Booktube Chicks, on Kathleen's channel on Saturday, July 24th at 5 p.m. Eastern for Pages and Pals, a monthly live read-in where it's just us and some special guests as we just chill out and read for like an hour or something like that. So yeah, that is all we have for book club today. We hope you all enjoyed it. We hope we will see you guys next month to discuss Malibu Rising. Bye.